The house was cheap. Too much. The realtor mentioned previous owners with unusual hobbies, but Mia didn't ask. The first alarm bell was the door to the basement, triple locks, steel fortifications. Inside, she found a glass chamber with a floor covered with dark flakes and a dusty magazine on the table. Entry 1, Subject 3 did not tolerate the X connection well. Seizures, paranoia. Note, increased sedation. Entry 17, auditory hallucinations confirmed. They call it the whisper protocol. Mia thought it was a stalker joke. But at night she was awakened by a piercing hum, as if from a dental drill. The sound came from the ventilation. She followed him to the garage, where a hidden panel opened, revealing rows of syringes labeled Neuro V9 and a flickering monitor recording her bedroom. The police didn't find anything. Old stuff, they said. But one officer muttered, they used to rent a lab here. Biomedical research. Closed after incidents. Mia's coffee tasted like metal in the morning. By noon, his vision was blurred. There was a note on the refrigerator, not her handwriting. Phase 2 has begun. Observe and report. The migraine started. And voices. Not in my head, but out of the walls. Distorted whispers, babbling numbers, addresses, her credit card details. She disassembled the ventilation. There was a microphone inside, warm to the touch. There was a forum in the browser bookmarks, Neuro V9 trials, remote cognitive programming. Recent comments. Subject 8, women, 28, demonstrates compliance. Start sleep deprivation. We are uploading new audio stimuli. The goal, the fear of suffocation. Mia packed her things, but the car wouldn't start. A message appeared on the screen, submission is required. Return to Area A. She ran. The neighboring houses were empty, the windows boarded up. A black van was waiting by the highway. A man in a bathrobe with a tablet went outside. Miss Carter. Let's discuss your lease agreement. She ran into the woods. There was a bunker in the clearing with the door ajar. Inside there are monitors with views of her rooms, a refrigerator with Neuro V9 test tubes and a folder, Subject 8, Mia Carter. Purpose, testing of forced obedience through subconscious audio signals. There was a gun in the closet. The shot echoed through the bunker. The man in the bathrobe fell down. Mia took his phone. Last message, eliminate Subject 8. Prepare the laboratory for relocation. She drove the van until she ran out of gas. Now she lives in the wilderness. But sometimes my ears ring at night. And when she checks her phone, turned off, without a battery, a notification lights up on the screen. Mia changed her name, her hair, even her fingerprints. An underground surgeon from the former Omega laboratory took double the fee. But after a month of silence, in her squalid apartment above an auto repair shop, the lights flickered on. The lamp didn't burn out, rhythmically, like Morse code, 3 short, 3 long. She tore the socket out of the wall. I found a coin-sized device in the dashboard, Omega Tracker V.3. There is a drop of blood on the case. Not hers. That same night, a box appeared on the doorstep. Inside is a child's toy, a robot dog with broken paws. An envelope is clutched in his teeth. Photo of Mia sleeping on the new couch. On the back. Phase 3, adaptation. Only one of us will survive. Run more cheerfully. She disassembled the robot. Inside is a flash drive with data, lists of subjects, their addresses, diagnoses. Her name was highlighted in red, unstable. An enhanced protocol is recommended. The next file is a video. A room with a mirrored floor. People in handcuffs, connected to servers through pins in the spine. One of them raised his head, and it was the surgeon who had changed her face. They know, Mia realized. But instead of panicking, I turned on my burner phone. The very first text message. Unknown, Dr. Rains is alive. And he wants the final report on Subject 8. She threw away the SIM card, but laughter rang in her head. Not through the speakers, but right in the ears, as after Neuro V9. The next day at the store, the cashier handed over the check. There is a handwritten note on it: your bus to the Last Chance station departs at 1800 hours. Mia didn't go. Instead, she hacked the mail of a former laboratory housemate. The drafts contain a letter. They have implemented chips through vaccines. They're testing on refugees. If you're reading this, I'm already dead. Look for the Omega platform in Zone 6. Zone 6. An abandoned shopping mall on the outskirts. Mia entered through the ventilation. Inside is an operating room with people in comas. Their dreams are on the screens, nightmares assembled from memories. She found the server room. Her face is on the monitor. Log files, Subject 8. Escape attempt number 12. 97% of reality simulation is completed. Preparing for the final iteration. A shutter clicked behind him. Mia turned around. Dr. Rains, with a bullet scar on his neck, was holding a gun. Congratulations, you have passed the selection. Your fear turned out to be delightfully tenacious. Is this a simulation? Mia whispered. No. It's a market. Rains pointed the gun at the screen. Every one of your nightmares was bought by the military. And now it's time to wake up. Shot. Did you think that a bullet would stop the protocol? He grinned, touching the sensor on her temple. Your consciousness has already been uploaded to the Omega platform. Even death here is just a parameter. The screens around them came to life, showing thousands of faces, other subjects whose brains were hanging in cloud servers, generating nightmares for auctions on the dark web. Mia noticed her profile, Subject 8. Resistance level, critical. Recommended, deep stimulation of the limbic system. Why do you need my nightmares? She whispered, trying to move her fingers. Fear is the best virus. Rains ran his hand over the hologram where the military from different countries were betting. Your phobias are training AI to suppress rebellions. But you broke the patterns. Suddenly, the screens crackled. An emergency hatch flashed in the corner of the room. It was blown up by a woman in a torn dressing gown, with a spike in the back of her head. Run. She tossed Mia a knife. They don't control the physical level. Mia cut the straps and ran after the stranger through the maze of pipes. The woman introduced herself as Laura, a former Omega programmer who had implanted a chip blocker. Your body is in a cryo chamber on level B7, Laura said, hacking into the elevator. But if you destroy the core of the platform, the simulation will collapse. The server room resembled a cathedral made of black silicon. In the center was a brain in a neural network, pulsing like a jellyfish, the core of an AI that feeds on fear. Laura connected the explosives, but the screens blared, extermination protocol activated. The walls began to crawl, turning into a digital web. Dr. Rains materialized from the pixels, his body distorted like a bad signal. You're trapped in the metaverse, Mia. Your every thought is my code. Laura shouted. Remember something real. Something that is not in their database. Mia closed her eyes. Memory, the smell of grandma's pie mixed with oil paint, she painted with it in the old barn. The world shook. Rains screamed, his pixels disintegrating. Nostalgia, Laura whispered. He can't emulate unique emotions. Mia focused on her memories, the first kiss, the tears from the bow, the scratch of the cat. The universe has cracked. She grabbed Laura and jumped into the rift. Mia and Laura are currently in a bunker in Alaska. They hacked part of Omega's data. The Whisper protocol is just a branch. The main project is the mirror, cloning the minds of the elite into artificial bodies. But yesterday the radio picked up a strange signal. A voice that sounded like Mia was begging for help. The coordinates lead to an island that is not on the maps. Laura wipes the gun. It's a trap. Mia looks at the photo of the surgeon. His body was found in Zone 6, but the signal was coming from where he physically could not be. Or an invitation. She loads the gun. They're still playing cat and mouse. And if it's another you? Laura turns on the hologram. The island map glows a poisonous green. Then I'll give myself a piece of advice: run faster. There's a recording looping somewhere on the air. Phase 4, replication. Welcome home, Subject 8. Mia clutched a photo of the island in her hand. The satellite image showed a piece of land in the Bering Sea designated as a nature reserve. Laura spread out on the table the security schematics she had extracted from Omega's servers before escaping. Thermal sensors around the perimeter, patrols every 2 hours. She pointed at the dots on the map. But there is a blind spot in the eastern part. Old tunnels. By plane to Nome, then by stolen boat, 6 hours in an icy fog. The island greeted them with the crash of waves on basalt rocks. The tunnels turned out to be an abandoned entrance to an underground complex. The rusty rails led deep into the mountain. The first difference from simulation is the smell. A pungent chemical stench, a mixture of chlorine and burnt flesh. Instead of holograms, there are concrete corridors with wires hanging like vines. Laura connected the portable scanner to the switchboard. Active cameras in Sector C. Movement. 20 people. They moved shadow by shadow. The laboratory unit opened behind a steel door with a biometric lock. Laura attached the stolen Raynos chip, a red light. "We need a fingerprint," Mia whispered, but then footsteps came from around the corner. 2 guards in black uniforms with the Omega security logo on their chevrons. The shots from the silencers were deafening in the narrow corridor. One fell, the other managed to press the alarm button. The siren blared, the flashing lights flooded everything with red. "Run!" Laura sprinted off in the direction of the maintenance tunnels. Mia, hiding herself, noticed the inscription on the nearest door: quarantine. Level 4-inch. Inside there are rows of glass chambers. People were handcuffed to their bunks, with bundles of electrodes reaching for their heads. The monitors were showing EEG, beta waves were going through the roof. Alive. Laura ran her hand over the screen. They put them in a state of controlled psychosis. Look. On the table are syringes with a drug Mia knows, Neuro V9. An inhibitor of the prefrontal cortex. The roar of engines in the tunnel. Mia looked out. An armored loader with a machine gun was crawling along the rails. "We need a sample," Laura shouted, grabbing the syringe. They ran out into the next corridor when the bullets began to crumble the concrete. Section B turned out to be a testing ground. There are dogs in cages with chips implanted in their skulls. One, with broken paws, rushed to the bars. Her eyes were covered with eyesore. The same symptoms as the subjects. Mia stopped when she heard a metallic screech behind her. Dr. Rains exited the elevator, shielding himself with a ballistic glass shield. The scar on his neck was pulled together by a coarse thread. "You're persistent, Miss Carter. But now you're part of the experiment." He pressed a button on his wristband. Mia screamed as the steel door slammed shut, cutting off Laura. Gas with a pungent menthol smell hit the ventilation. Modified V9, Rains pressed the mask to his face. "Cause paralysis in 30 seconds. Mia grabbed a syringe from her pocket as she fell and plunged it into her thigh. The antidote stolen from quarantine burned like fire. She jumped up before Rains could figure it out and stabbed him in the gap between the shield and the bulletproof vest. Laura broke down the door, throwing a thermal charger into the slot. Together they reached the server room. Instead of a pulsating brain, there are rows of hard drives labeled Whisper Protocol. Version 2.1 inch. The data is here, Laura plugged in the drive. All tests, lists of those chipped through vaccines. Explosives with a timer for 5 minutes. They ran to the exit, bypassing the mopping up area. On the surface, by the boat, Laura took out a satellite phone. We have enough evidence to burn them. But as they sailed away, Mia looked at the syringe in her hand. The Neuro V9 label hid the fine print, property of the Pentagon. The MK Ultra 2.0 project. This is just the beginning, she whispered, watching the island disappear into the fog. Encrypted files were already flying somewhere on the air, to the servers of independent media, into the hands of hacktivists. But they found a flash drive marked Mirror in Rain's pocket. At launch, the video showed a copy of Mia, a girl with her face, reading a report in front of the generals. Replication, Laura realized. They clone agents. Mia and Laura, hiding in a safe house in Alaska, systematized the data from the island. The evidence was irrefutable: contracts with defense companies, records of human experiments, lists of refugees who had been vaccinated. Laura, using anonymous channels, leaked the information to independent journalists from The Guardian and WikiLeaks. A week later, the headlines blew up the network: Modern MK Ultra, how the Pentagon is testing mind control. The government denied everything, calling the materials fake, but a wave of outrage swept the world. The courts were flooded with lawsuits from victims whose faces flashed in laboratory reports. Under pressure from Congress, hearings were held. The generals were lost in questions, and one of the Omega scientists, afraid of prison, became a witness for the prosecution. Dr. Rains has been put on the international wanted list. His photo hung on every corner, but his body was never found, only traces of blood in an abandoned laboratory on the island. Mia sometimes thought she saw him in the crowd, but it was always someone else. Paranoid habits became her new norm: checking rooms for bugs, changing routes, encrypted correspondence. The Mirror Project turned out to be a training program for doppelgangers, not clones, but people altered by plastic surgery and brainwashing. Laura hacked into the database and found politicians and journalists among the targets. They sent warnings to everyone, but no one responded. Only Senator McCarthy abruptly withdrew from the election, citing family circumstances. Laura joined an old hacktivist chat and created a network of like-minded people. They found clandestine laboratories, posing as eco-activists, and sabotaged the supply of drugs. Mia, on the other hand, focused on helping victims, those whose psyche was broken by Neuro V9. She raised money for rehabilitation, found psychologists who were willing to work anonymously. One night, while checking her mail, Mia found an email marked, "From the one you killed." The attached video showed Rains wearing a mask, with a scarred face. "You're naive, Mia. Omega is just a branch. The tree grows in the shadow of the budget." Documents with the logo of the private military company Blackthorn Incorporated flashed off screen, and then the screen went blank. Laura, having traced the IP address, logged on to a server in Switzerland. After hacking it, they saw contracts for cognitive weapons for regimes that even the UN was afraid to name. But instead of another leak, they copied everything into an encrypted archive. "It's not our time," Laura said. "But it'll come in handy one day." A year later, Mia, under a new name, works as a nurse at a clinic for veterans. Sometimes she sees a familiar gleam in the eyes of patients, an emptiness built up over years of control. She teaches them how to draw, just like she used to with her grandmother. "Art therapy," says the reports. In fact, it's a test. You can't fake real emotions. Laura lives in a bunker in Norway, surrounded by servers. Her new goal is an algorithm that recognizes chips through retinal scanning. It's still testing on volunteers. Mia still wakes up at night with a buzzing in her ears. But now it's just tinnitus, the result of a neurotoxin overdose. Present. And in the darkness of the screens, in the corners of the dark net, a timer is ticking. The archive named Mirror is waiting in the wings.